Foundation and the Begin Center. I want to thank Sal Litvak, the writer and director of the film, for making a special trip to Israel for this screening and staying on for other screenings in Netanya, Gush and Tel Aviv. The other screenings were arranged by Fab Events and Risa. Thank you, Risa and Raymond, for joining us tonight. After the film, be sure to share how much you liked it and let your friends know that they have a few more opportunities to see the film on the big screen. I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you the whole story that culminated with all of you here at the Begin Center this evening for this screening. In short, I'm answering the existential question of why are we here? Sal shared on Facebook and Instagram a little bit of the story, but as I said to Sal on the phone last fall, there are no coincidences. And as it happens, this little spiel that I'm about to give is just in time for Purim and the story of coincidences commonly known as Megillat Esther. The story begins last August. You may know that Guns N' Moses came out in the US for a limited run in July, but I missed it. I had no idea. In August, I think about my dad, of blessed memory, because his birthday is August 15th. Coincidentally, Menachem Begin's secular birthday is August 16th. Sometime toward the end of August, the algorithm decided to show me a nice Jewish man telling Jewish dad jokes. That's nice, I thought, still thinking about my dad. Then the algorithm decided that I needed to see the origin story of the Accidental Talmudist, who also happened to be this Jewish dad joke collector. Sal tells it better, but the short version is that in his journey to return to Judaism, Sal kept going to a Jewish bookstore and admiring the shelf full of beautifully bound volumes of Talmud. Someday, he kept saying to himself. Then one day, he decided, I'm going to buy just the first one. He goes up to the cashier, and the cashier asks, oh, are you doing Daf Yomi? Sal replies, what's Daf Yomi? And the cashier explains that it's studying a page of Talmud every day, and it takes 7.5 years to get through the whole cycle, and, coincidentally, today is the first day of the new cycle. Message received, God. Sal started that day and completed the whole cycle. Well, I can support that. And I started paying attention to the Accidental Talmudist. If you don't know about the Accidental Talmudist, besides being the embodiment of the person of Sal, it's an online space where he and his wife Nina share what's beautiful in Torah and the oral tradition with 1.3 million followers on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want all the dad jokes in one convenient place, they're in the best-selling book, Let My People Laugh, Greatest Jewish Jokes of All Time, available on Amazon and Kindle, or as a gift to me, which we'll discuss further compensation later. And now back to the story. A few days go by, and the algorithm decides that I need to see a reel of Christopher Lloyd in this movie, Guns N' Moses. Now, my dad didn't exactly look like Christopher Lloyd, but somehow this clip was just imbued with the spirit of my dad. I was so struck by this, I sent the reel to my family. I wasn't imagining it. They saw it too. Of course, then I had to watch the trailer for the movie. Guns N' Moses is a genre-crossing movie, a thriller, a mystery, and a western wrapped up in Jewish wisdom and tradition. As Sal mentioned in his post, the trailer even includes a quote from Begin, more or less. I'm not sure how many times I watched the trailer, but the spike in views was probably because of me. The more I watched it, the more I felt my dad's presence. You see, my dad and I connected over movies. Most of my childhood memories with him have something to do with movies. We would sit around and watch old movies on whatever cable channel was playing them. Dad woke me up once at 3 a.m. because The Hunchback of Notre Dame was on with Lon Chaney. Though looking back now, it might have been Charles Lawton. My first Western was Once Upon a Time in the West. Henry Fonda as a villain. Charles Bronson, played by Trauma. Of course, all the Clint Eastwood Westerns were on tap, not to mention films like The Dirty Dozen, 12 Angry Men, Witness for the Prosecution, It's a Wonderful Life, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Manchurian Candidate, the original, East of Eden, and many more. Once as a family, we watched The Big Lebowski. Honestly, kind of a weird choice to watch with parents. And when Sam Elliott, as the stranger, asks the dude, "Do you have to use so many cuss words?" Dad said, "Yeah, why does he use so many cuss words?" Later, there were more movies we watched separately, and in his more Jewish-flavored moods, he'd bring up the Jewish aspects of movies. One obvious example is Indiana Jones. The Big Lebowski was another, except for all the swearing. Star Wars in its way, and if he were alive today, I'm sure he would have seen the Jewish aspects of The Mandalorian. Although now we're moving into TV, but I recently saw a trailer for the upcoming movie. On September 6th, I watched the trailer a few dozen more times and wondered if this movie would ever come to Israel. Maybe for a festival, maybe as a theatrical release, maybe I would write a note to the Accidental Talmudist and just ask. So I wrote to ask about Israeli screenings, mentioning the Jerusalem Jewish Film Festival in December, the Jerusalem Film Festival next July, and then I had a thought and added, and if those don't work out, the Bacon Center has a 300-seat auditorium. I pressed send before I could overthink it. It was Shabbat, so of course the Accidental Talmudist wouldn't be answering anytime soon. I watched the trailer a few more times and told myself to stop obsessing. Sunday morning at 8 a.m., I get a message back. The director would like to speak to you. Are you available? What? The Accidental Talmudist wants to talk to me? Since I hadn't asked anyone about screening this movie and offering the auditorium, I really didn't want to overpromise. Well, let's ask forgiveness instead of permission. So I said, sure, let's talk now. I was in my pajamas drinking coffee and praying that this would be a phone call, not a video call. It was a phone call. After a bit of flustery fangirling, he sounds just like he does on Facebook. I mentioned that the trailer caught my attention because it paraphrases Bacon. When an enemy of your people seeks to destroy you, believe him. Sal didn't know the phrase was from Bacon. He thought it was just in the zeitgeist. But I knew that this would be the hook to bring it to the Bacon Center. Guns N' Moses got a fun 5-day run nationwide in the U.S. from September 7th to 11th. And coincidentally, the head of the Bacon Center was going on a speaking tour to North America at the same time. I sent the trailer to my boss and pointed out that it quotes Bacon. Then I spent an hour or more trying to figure out if a screening would be shown nearby where my boss was going to be. I found one in Skokie and suggested that he go to the movies. He also had a potential meeting with someone known to be a big fan of the film. Then he wrote, Ilana, I think you're a little bit obsessed. I replied with a 100% sticker. In my dad's last months, his main activity was watching Westerns on whatever channel happened to be playing them all day. My dad loved the Western. When I saw the remake of The Magnificent Seven a few years ago, I genuinely felt my dad's presence next to me enjoying the film. Dad's childhood was filled with movies because his family used to own the Brown Avenue Theater in Yakima, Washington. And he filled my childhood with movies too. In fact, if asked to describe my dad, I use Hollywood references. He's a mix of Clint Eastwood, Gregory Peck, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, and a little bit of Christopher Lloyd. To an outsider, that makes no sense, but to me, it's exactly right. I was surprised to learn a few years ago that my brothers didn't have the same experience with Dad. Movies were our thing. And with the family history of running a movie theater, I had harbored a secret dream that if money was no object, I'd open a movie theater in honor of the Brown Avenue Theater, but not in Yakima, obviously. Once I got permission to show Guns N' Moses, we had to set the date. We're pretty busy at the Bacon Center, and so we were looking down the road after the new year and settled on February 24th. Coincidentally, Sal's grandmother's birthday. May her memory be a blessing. My dad's 10th yard site is coincidentally in a few days. And a few days ago, coincidentally, we commemorated Menachem Begin's yard site. So I'd like to dedicate the screening to the memory of my dad, David Brown, middle son of Faye and Martin Brown, and in honor of the Brown Avenue Theater. My dad would have really enjoyed this film, and I hope you do too.
Big print, my remarks are quite short. At the hottest show in town, Esti Rabinovich,
is sitting in the front row, next to an empty seat. A lady in the second row leans forward and says, "Is no one sitting there?" "No, sadly, my husband couldn't come because he passed away." "Oh, I'm so sorry. But these seats are so expensive. Surely you could have brought a member of your family." "Well, I would have, but they're all at the funeral." Welcome to the hottest show in town. It is an honor and a joy to share our film with you here in Israel, where we're all family. Thank you, Hashem, that we're here. And a huge thanks to Alana and Paul and the whole team here at the Menachem Begin Heritage Center. What a beautiful event you've created. Also, big thanks to Risa Shapiro, Raymond Chazan, and their team for putting together the other Guns N' Moses screenings this week, starting tomorrow in Netanya. My wife Nina and I set out to make an edge-of-your-seat mystery thriller in a world that Hollywood never depicts on film. Our world. We're religious Jews, which is to say, visible Jews in America. And being visible has made us aware for a long time that the danger to Jews everywhere is real. In 2018, I joined Magen Am, a volunteer Jewish security organization created by Chabad Rabbi Yossi Helfer. We train extensively, we're licensed, we carry firearms in shul, and our qualification tests are more rigorous than the FBI's. In 2019, Lori Gilbert Kay was murdered by a neo-Nazi on the last day of Passover in a Chabad shul in Poway, California. Rabbi Goldstein's fingers were shot off when he bravely confronted the killer. I attended Lori's funeral the next day, and I held the rabbi's bandaged hands in mine. And then we watched him become a national figure on television, calling for mitzvahs in Lori's memory, challenging all of us to create light from the darkness. Nina and I knew that Jews under attack who fight back would always be relevant. But we never imagined a horror like October 7th. Please note, we conceived, wrote, and shot Guns N' Moses before October 7th. But we completed post-production and brought the film to market after October 7th. And that is a different world, as we all know. You will judge the entertainment value of this film for yourself in a few minutes. But I can tell you that a mystery thriller with this level of production value and this level of cast normally receives 100 to 200 reviews from the mainstream media. Guns N' Moses received 11. A movie like this opens on 500 to 800 screens in its initial run. We opened on 77. A movie like this sells internationally based on the action thriller elements alone. We have sold North and South America, the UK, France, Israel, Australia, and South Korea. But the rest of Europe and Asia, it's a tough sale for a movie about tough Torah Jews. Had we depicted Jews dying in the Holocaust, we would not be facing these challenges. Had we depicted Jews who marry non-Jews, we'd be winning awards. But we made a movie about strong, proud Jews who stand their ground. And so it's a battle, and that's okay. We're up for the battle. My grandmother Magda carried my mother Kati as an infant through a concentration camp. My mother never met her father, who was taken away while Magda was pregnant, and he was murdered at Dachau. Had Israel existed then, it would have been a different story. Tonight is Magda's birthday. So I will dedicate this premiere and the Israeli journey of Guns and Moses to my grandmother Magda. We're going to have a Q&A after the movie, and I look forward to discussing our film with you, my dear Israeli family.
With microphones, so I see you have a question. My eyes are not very good, so catch somebody's eye who can see you. But first I want to thank Sal for coming. Every night this week in different locations, like I said. So tell your friends if you like the movie, and even if you didn't like the movie, tell your friends to go see it.
And everyone should know that the movie starting tomorrow is available in Israel on Apple TV, so people can buy or rent and see it here. But if they want to meet me and hear from me and have a Q&A like this, then there's the screenings in Netanya tomorrow, the Gush Thursday, Tel Aviv, Motzi Shabbos, and Aish Hatar in the Old City Sunday morning.
So I want to give you a gift with a little bit of an explanation. So pull out the first book, because we're people of the book, so we're giving books. So the white one. So that's White Nights by Menachem Begin.
Awesome.
It's a little bit depressing because it's about his time in a prison camp in Siberia. But the connection with the movies is that when Natalie Portman was here, nobody recognized her because she was very young when she came with her parents, and it was quite a few years ago. She was doing research for her role in V for Vendetta, and she took that book as a study, like, to find out how it is to be within a labor camp, closed off from anything, and so I hope you'll read it with that in mind.
Absolutely, thank you. And the museum catalog.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Because I'm going to take you through the museum later this week.
Okay.
Somebody had a question here.
Hi.
Oh.
Over here.
There you are.
Okay.
I love the movie. It was great. And I wanted to ask you, when did you become a screenwriter?
Thank you for that. So Nina and I are a screenwriting team. As she always says, we are a good screenwriter together. Her strength is character, mine is a little more structure and dialogue. And it's a good question because I was born in Chile. We moved to the United States when I was 5. My parents were immigrants, and they said, you're going to go to a good college and be a doctor. And since I was 5, I said, okay. And so that was always the plan, but I never really thought about what do I want to do, what do I want to be when I grow up. And when I was in college, I realized I didn't want to go to medical school, so of course I went to law school. And it was really only when I was in law school that I started thinking, like, really, who am I? What am I trying to do? And I knew that I wanted to create something. I'd switched to English. I was an English major. I thought I would write novels. But a friend of mine went to film school, and I had honestly never heard of it. I didn't know it was possible to become a director. I just thought that was something that children of celebrities do or something like that. But I always loved movies. I really loved movies. And so the escape from that corporate life for me was applying to UCLA Film School, to the MFA Directors Program. And they were taking 18 out of 700 applicants. I had no background, I had no business getting in. But one thing I learned how to do in law school is get a job, campaign for a position. And I talked my way into UCLA Film School. And Nina and I, we each written about 5 scripts on our own, and we've written 10 together, and thank God 3 of them have been made into movies. that were released theatrically in the United States. Our first became a cult classic, the Pesach movie called When Do We Eat? It was Jack Klugman's last picture. Thank you. And Michael Lerner, Leslie Ann Warren. I discovered Max Greenfield and Ben Feldman. And it's a movie people watch every year as Pesach approaches. Our second picture was Saving Lincoln, about Abraham Lincoln and his closest friend and bodyguard, Ward Hill Lamb. And Alana took me outside during the movie, and I didn't know that Menachem Begin had a real interest in Abraham Lincoln. There's an original death mask from the cast of his face after he died. And then Guns N' Moses is our third picture.
I really enjoyed the movie. I found it complex, interesting, slightly Talmudic, together with your book of jokes. What message did you want to give to the non-Jewish world that doesn't understand all the niche, the niche sentiments that the Jews already know, Chabad Rabbi and the like?
Thank you for that. The message to the non-Jewish audience, you know, I talked about in my remarks before the movie, and we're all aware that there's a rising danger, something we haven't seen since the Shoah. Maybe it hasn't been this dangerous for Jews outside of Israel in 80 years. But we've also seen, thank God, that we have friends. And there are people who stand with the Jewish people and who stand with Israel now. And I'll tell you something, the Goyim like Jewy Jews. They respect Jews that are connected to Torah, to Israel, to each other. I mean, the idea of, and I know that the leadership in Israel, I don't think Israelis even know that there was this stereotype of the Jew who, you know, crossed the street and ran away cowering in fear. Now we have, you know, strong Jews in the world, Jews that can defend themselves. But my father, you know, growing up in Chile, on my father's side, they were Ukrainian who ended up in Chile in 1905. My grandfather, my father, and I were all born in Chile. And it was there was a lot of anti-Semitism there. My father got into fights many times, but he really looked, you know, to the creation of the state of Israel and the way that Israel could fight and defend itself and win every war. It was a tremendous inspiration to him, and I think it was an inspiration to Jews everywhere. And I think the message of the movie is we have a lot to contribute, and we love peace, and we love simcha, and we love Torah. But if you mess with us, we're not a soft target.
Hi, big fan of your Pesach movie. What was it like to counsel the characters who played the baddies and the Jewish characters who played the baddies, and the non-Jewish characters who played the goodies? How was it? What was the process for you to get them where they needed to be just for the movie?
So you're asking, once they were cast, how do we work with the actors?
Yeah, because, you know, they're up against, in this movie, as characters, they're up against a lot.
Yeah.
They're up against a lot of anti-Semitism. That little kid who was, he was pinned as the killer, but he didn't do it. And all these parts were very vital for the movie. How did you?
I thank you for that. You said a lot. You asked several interesting questions there. So about the kid who played Clay, the anti-Semite. You know, he is a great actor, and he won an audition against thousands of people to be the lead in a horror movie from Sony Pictures. I can't even remember the name of the movie right now. and he made a name for himself. And then our movie, the casting director, you know, some of the parts that were cast with big stars, we made offers and they said yes. And some of the other parts, you know, we didn't have the money or the budget to offer, you know, star salaries, so we had auditions. That kid sent in an audition tape. He was sort of like at a higher station than somebody sending in an audition tape. But the script got out and people were responding to it and he wanted to be part of it. And as soon as we saw that tape, it was like, wow, he's going to get that part. Once the actors were cast, and Mark Feuerstein plays Rabbi Mal, and Alona Tal, Israeli, plays the Rebbitzin, Hindi. And they're both Jewish, obviously. They're not religious. They took the part very seriously. Our show in LA is not a Chabad show. It's a frum show, it's very diverse, but my Rav is from Chabad. And I know a lot of Chabad rabbis who are very dear friends of mine. And so I matched Mark Feuerstein with a couple of them, and he followed them around. And like, he really got that, right? It's not just the language, it's not just the dialogue, it's the rhythm of the speech. And Mark is naturally sweet, but he picked up extra sweetness that these Chabad rabbis have. And Alona, right, she's very musical, and so she has an ear for dialect, and so, I mean, you know, she's one of you. She speaks Hebrew like an Israeli, but she now had to speak in Hebrew like an American, right? And that was something, of course, that she could do. And when she was shooting a rifle, she served in the IDF, but she had to pretend that she didn't know how to shoot a rifle. So these were kind of the simpler things, but to really answer your question about working with them and getting the acting right, you know, you always wish that you could have a big rehearsal period, like you do with a play, where you rehearse for weeks. And if I had a 2-week rehearsal period working 8 hours a day, I would use it. But in the real world, you can't have that. You know, you're very lucky when you get these actors. You can have 1 day of rehearsals, and we had that. And we just, but it's sort of in the different groups of actors who appear together, you know, we just have 45 minutes or an hour to work through a few things and just ask a few questions and talk through what these characters are trying to do and what they're going to do when they can't get it. And then it's really just a testimony to the talent and dedication of that cast. And on top of that, because we only had 20 days to shoot this, and anybody here who knows a little bit about production, you know, if Hollywood made this movie, so our budget was about $4 million. If Hollywood was making this movie, it would be $25 million, and they would have 3 months to shoot it. We had 4 weeks. And because there was so much action in it, that was even less time that we could work on the emotional journey of the actors, the performances, the characters. And so they had to be so trusting that I knew what I was doing, that the other actors knew what they were doing, and they were just totally committed. And I'm so proud of the work that they did. You know, they really, thank God.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the Chekhov's turtle in the beginning, which was a lot of fun when it came back at the end. I have to say, when I saw the trailer and we signed up to come see this, I had a very different idea of what this movie would be. And in fact, the beginning of the movie, I was like, okay, this is like The Punisher, right? This is going to be a bloodbath. There's like, you know, all these people are going to die, and he's going to want some revenge kick, like, you know, Charles Bronson or something else. And you didn't go there. And I thought it was very well done how, you know, you brought the Jewish into what could have been that kind of revenge flick. But I'm wondering did you have other, you know, the earlier versions of the script, was it always going to come out this way, or did you play with other ideas of how do we make the concept of a Guns N' Moses work, you know, and you know, or was it always going to be this idea that it's a self-defense and it's, you know, it's not a revenge movie?
And everything is not what it seems. It was definitely going to be a mystery. And the challenge in a mystery is that you have that multiple suspects who all might have done it, had reason to do it, had ability to do it, and didn't do it. Right? So that's the complexity of a mystery. But I also we wanted this movie to be seen by audiences. And so there was going to be a certain amount of action, to be honest, so it could be in the trailer, so that it would help sell the movie, and I could get the money back to the investors who enabled us to make the movie. That really helps. But it's not a revenge fantasy, and as you can see, even the kid who didn't do it, right, he was radicalized online. And so there's a lot of issues that are very much from the real world here. But in terms of the way Nina and I work, is we knew it was going to be a thriller, and so we watched a thriller a day for 2 years to just study the genre, kind of going back to film school. And then the way we work is we don't write a script, we grow it. So first we have the idea, then we get all the characters, and then we can tell the story in 3 sentences, 10 sentences, 1-page outline, 2-page outline, 30-page outline. And by the time we're actually writing the dialogue, like we know what's going to happen in every scene. And I always, when people come to me for advice about writing something, whether it's a book or a script, don't start on page 1 and figure it out as you go along. That's a sure recipe for giving up on it. You really have to know the whole story. You have to always have a beginning, middle, and end, and you fill it in. And I guess that's Talmudic. You can go deep at every part of the story. There are questions to ask in every part of the story.
If I remember correctly from all the deep research that I did, you have Hitchcock influences in the film. Do you want to talk about that?
Definitely, watching all those thrillers, Hitchcock was a big one for us, North by Northwest. So we knew we were going to make a Jewish movie because we had the audience at Accidental Talmudist. And then the Poway shooting happened. You can see this is not the story of the Poway shooting, but you can see that inspiration. And there was one other thing, was if you drive from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, you pass a huge thermal solar energy facility. And it's in the credits, not the one where we actually shot. But I said, that would be an amazing place for a cat and mouse scene, like North by Northwest, Hitchcock and Mount Rushmore. So we had the idea for that scene before we had a movie to put it in. And then we made a movie to put it in. There and over here.
I found that this movie was very strong, very interesting,
Up there.
and had a lot of underlying theories running through it. Query: do you think that every Jew in America needs a 45?
Right. So Mayor Kahan said every Jew at 22. And like she said, 22 is a pea shoot. No, I don't think that every Jew needs a 45. I think it's a big responsibility having a firearm. And in a time of danger, if you think that you're going to protect your family and your community just by buying a gun and putting it in a drawer, you're not safe to use that gun. It takes tremendous amount of training and commitment to be able to use a gun effectively. So if you're going to get one, you have to get trained, you have to keep training because it's a perishable skill. But we do need a lot of people to take on that responsibility because if you're going to rely on the police don't get there in time. If you're going to rely on other people, who knows if they're going to be there or not. So we need shomrim in our communities. It's not for everybody, but I'll tell you what is for everybody is having situational awareness. Even here in Yerushalayim today, I was just walking behind the guy who was just walking down the sidewalk with his face in a phone. You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to train your kids not to do that. You have to walk around with your eyes open. And you should always be aware of what's normal so that when you see something abnormal, you notice it. That's an important survival skill that we all have to have. She asked, there was a lot of action and dangerous stunts. Was anybody hurt during the shooting? I'll tell you something, we shot this movie shortly after that terrible accident on an Alec Baldwin movie where a woman, a cinematographer, was killed by a gun. that had a live round in it on a movie set, which is an appalling lack of protocols. Crazy. So since I am familiar with firearms, I mean, listen, something like that should never happen. There are so many safety protocols so that it doesn't happen, that it's crazy that something like that happened. But on our movie, we had an extra step that when a firearm was brought onto the set, they had to show it to me and confirm, what kind of round we were using. Because there's lots of ways when you're making a movie. Sometimes there's nothing in the gun. Sometimes there's a quarter round or a half round or a full round. That's just for the noise, the bang. There's no bullets. Sometimes there's something called plugs where the gun will recoil, but nothing, won't even have a muzzle flash. So in terms of that, there was no danger. We were very careful. But we were working very long hours. And the one thing that did happen is that Mercedes, who plays Liat, at a certain moment when she's getting ready and she chambers around, she brings the slide back on the gun. And she was well trained and she knew how to do it, but we were all tired. And she just pinched the skin of her thumb on the slide. That hurt. But it's not a big deal. She just needed a Band-Aid, but it hurt. Gotta be careful. Yeah. Well, let me repeat that. She said, this is not the kind of movie I would normally like, but I loved it.
Okay, so I actually have questions about two aspects. Number one, the actors that decided to participate, given the politics we're aware of in Hollywood, maybe you could talk about, especially McDonough and Mulroney, why they would agree to participate in this movie with guns.
Let me tell you something. It was much easier to get non-Jews to act in the movie than Jews. I mean, the Jews in Hollywood are just part of that same stereotypical, godless thing. They're all very willing to play dead Jews in the Holocaust, or shticky Jews, Larry David, that kind of comedy, Woody Allen. And I love those guys. They're funny. It's great. But don't we need some other images of Jews in movies?
Well, is that related to maybe the distribution issues that I think was alluded to earlier on? I mean, yeah, there's always that question, but they made the decision to come in the movie. That was all before October 7th, right? So we hadn't reached that next level of problematic. But yes, in America there's these narratives, right? And so a movie about somebody, let's put it this way, in Hollywood, very often somebody has to learn how to shoot, especially in a Western, right? And what do? They put 5 tin cans on a fence, he misses the first one, he hits the next 4, and now the guy's a dead shot. So that's not the real world at all. And as I've traveled with the movie, I've shared it with a lot of law enforcement and veterans, and they really appreciate that the training in the movie, because it's based on my own training in Maganam, it's real, it's from the real world. That's the real language of learning how to use a firearm. Slow is steady, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, sight picture, trigger press, just that pressure, let the bang surprise you, that's all real. And because it's real, so it enters the politics of Second Amendment. Is this anti-gun control? Is it pro-guns? It's not pro-guns, right? It's pro-safety, it's pro-security, it's pro-Jews defending themselves. But yeah, it enters kind of these political questions, and it's a little too hot for some people. And those guys loved it. They loved the script and they responded to it. Christopher Lloyd. I mean, everybody loves Christopher Lloyd. It was a really fun day on the set with him because everybody's seen Back to the Future. Everybody loves Chris. And he was very generous with his time, and he's so sweet. And it was great to work with him. But that's the real world in Hollywood.
I was just about to ask, I'm up here.
Where are you? There you are.
First, a shout out to my old friend from Passaic, Lisa Shapiro. Okay, that having been said, what intrigued such a career, successful entertainer as Christopher Lloyd to read and accept this role? I find that remarkable.
You know, nobody ever offered him a part like that. And he was happy to do it. And not only that, but to get that, you know, that Eastern European Yiddish accent, he hired a dialect coach on his own dime so he would get it right. And I'll tell you, when we shot the movie, I think he was 82 or 83. And, you know, super sharp, but that was a big monologue. big, big speech. And, okay, so he had trouble remembering all the lines. So I'll tell you how this went down behind the scenes. He had an earwig on, which is like so somebody could feed him the lines. And the way it worked out was Lee Broder, our Israeli producer, and her parents are here. Where are they? They were here. And so she was feeding him the lines in her Israeli accent. And so he would say a line and then pause, hear the whole line, and then say the next line. And it was like, and then the Nazis came to my town and they threatened all of us, and I was 9 years old. So that's the way it was. And people were coming up to me and saying, Sal, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And I said, it's going to work, it's going to work. We're just going to need multiple angles on Chris so I can cut from Chris to Chris and cut out those pauses. I knew it was going to work. But it took real professionals, right, in him, the crew, and especially the other actors in that scene to stay exactly in that energy during the pauses, you know, so that we could cut around it. And it worked. That's how it happened. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take 2 more questions, and then I'll stay after if people want to come up to me personally.
First of all, I want to thank you for the movie. It was fantastic. Beyond my expectations. And also thank you for making it appropriate for a religious audience. It's not obvious. I wanted to ask, you kind of, this could have been about hunting, you know, classic anti-Semites kind of thing, but you pivoted away from that, right? You started off with the neo-Nazis and whatever, but you very quickly pivoted away. I was wondering what the thought process behind Dafka not going for the classic anti-Semite kind of tropes was, like what was behind that?
Right, so he's saying, why not make the neo-Nazi the enemy? And why do something like at another level? I just used the neo-Nazi as the setup, right? Because at the end of the day, it was a mystery. It was a mystery thriller, and we needed to fake people out. We needed to go to this deeper level. Since we're all mishpacha here, I was not so familiar with Neil McDonough's work before this movie. He always plays the bad guy. If I'd known that,
I was so
wouldn't get the
disappointed.
part.
I really hoped he was going to be the good guy at the beginning. I was so mad.
We were like, more, no, but in this movie, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? He's the mentor. But man, was Neil fantastic. He was so much fun to work with. He's such a pro. But yeah, I mean, we wanted to keep you guessing. Like, that's just so important in a mystery thriller. And that's one of the hardest things to work out, you know? And Nina has just been a real lifelong fan of mysteries. Agatha Christie is just one of her heroes. You mentioned Hitchcock, and other directors for us were like De Palma and Clouseau, Polanski. And we really, you know, we watched so many thrillers, and we would get them from lists, like the top 50 thrillers of all time, the top 100 thrillers, the top international 50 thrillers of all time. And we wanted to make a movie that was worthy to take its place on such a list. And, you know, like I said, we had these troubles just in this post-October 7th world. But I think over time, I mean, audiences have been so positive about the movie that please help us. Tell your friends, watch this movie. You got to see this movie and help it get out there. Because right now, it's the fans of the zy that are going to make it succeed by getting it to other people who would love it and who haven't heard about it. Thank you.
apart from the whodunits and the amazing film that you put together, I was especially touched with Clay evolving and his relationship with the rabbi. I think that was a touch that was supreme. I had my tears in my eyes. It was phenomenal. His response to the rabbi who didn't know what he was going to do. Amazing, amazing transformation. It's very talented. That was beautiful.
Thank you for that. And so the brownie was the key, right? The brownie. He ate the brownie. And that was very important because now if you're a mystery writer, we have the big problem. How is it that the rabbi is sure the kid didn't do it, but the evidence for that doesn't speak to anyone else? It speaks to the rabbi's gut instinct. It was because he ate the brownie. He saw his eyes when he heard Chris's story. Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think that's very important because there are people out there who hate the Jews who've never met a Jew. That's a very real story that's going on in the world right now. And people like Tucker Carlson, what a jackass. You know, speaking against Israel, he came to Israel, he was in the airport, you know, and he didn't leave the airport, and he claims he was detained, and I don't know who's paying him and what's going on with him, but he's doing tremendous harm to Israel, to the Jews, and there are other people like him, Candace Owens, another jackass. And these people are really hurting us, you know, and the way that they're hurting us is that they keep pumping out the same lies. And people out there, you know, hear it on social media, and you say a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. Goebbels said that. And then what do? Well, we give information, we give statistics, we tell the truth. And it's not as compelling as a very short lie. Okay, that's the world that we live in. But I think that over time, the truth always does come out. And, you know, Purim is coming up, and the Hamans of the world always lose in the end. They can do tremendous harm, but they lose in the end.
You ask Ashkenazi Jews. You're not good Jews, right?
So, and just one last thing I wanted to say. I don't know if he was able to be here tonight, but Baruch Chait, who wrote Kol Ha'olam Kulo, you know, it was a big deal for us to use the song in the movie, and he gave us permission. I'm sure you're all aware that, you know, Hayalim sing that song as they're on their way to war. And it's something that Nina and I have done in all our pictures. They're not musicals, but people sing. People sing in the real world. It's not a musical to sing beautifully, but you should never let the fact that you're not a good singer stop you from singing. These are the songs of our people, and they really give us chizuk in tough times.
Can I just ask one question? I just wanted to ask you if you'll have a sequel, because I think this type of movie is the kind of outreach that shows the warmth and kindness in a very gentle way. And I know if there was a sequel, I definitely would want to watch it.
We'd love to make a sequel. We've got a detective. There's more crimes he could solve. But the movie's got to succeed. So tell your friends to watch this movie. One last one, then we'll talk outside.
Are those the correct notes of Kohanim? Because I think it sounded off.
A little bit of Okay, so it was a little bit off. Don't let being off stop you from singing. Risa organized this screening, and she's also creating this organization, Anglo Aid. Read about it in her pamphlet outside. This is the time we got to stick together, my friends. Thank you for coming out.